All right, so we're going to take a look at my most recent version of the Colorways Game of Life, which is a version of Conway's Game of Life. I've talked about this before. It's a toy I play with every now and then. It's not a serious project or anything, but it does give me an outlet to test the text layer. As you can see, it's putting text up on the screen. And it makes it useful for debugging stuff I'm working on without having to rely on a console and log files and stuff like that. So being able to just, throw text up in my own controllable fashion is kind of useful. But it also makes developing quick little toys like this fun too, because I can output statistics on the screen or put control information. This program, I can populate the entire thing, all three planes of color with the L key. And right now, as you can see, we're in three traditional uh, games of Conway Game of Life. That's Conway's Game of Life. You know the rules. Two or three remain alive. Three give birth. More than three, cell dies. Less than two, cell dies. So what you see right here are three different planes acting independently. They are completely unaware of each other. Red, which we can view independently, or turn off. We can, yeah, red independently, green independently, blue independently, or we can see all three. We can also modify specific ones. So if we select red, I can, I can do things to red and so forth, so on. But this is really just three simultaneous Conway's Game of Life instances running at the same time. That's not by itself terribly interesting. What becomes interesting is when we start letting them interfere with each other. So by pressing the S key, we can change the rule set. This one I call destructive because basically the three layers are aware of each other, and the presence of any of the other two affects all of them. So if one is surrounded by too many of the other two, it will die. And if it gives birth and there aren't more of the other two, it thrives. So what you see here are the three fighting for dominance. They're destructive of each other. This one is interesting because they don't seem to die. The presence of the other two keep them giving birth, but the presence of the other two also prevent them from growing. So they kind of reach this slow changing state where if you watch one region, you'll see that it doesn't really change from colors very often. And when it does, the transition is slow. This is probably the least interesting of the rule sets. Next, we have the one I call competitive, where they will kill each other, but they also aggressively try to grow. So you see them fighting for dominance, but they destroy the others in their path more effectively. Maybe this one should be called destructive. I don't know, but they're very competitive for space. And if you watch it long enough, it takes a long time, but eventually life will begin to die off in one color and one will dominate, but it never stays dominant. Eventually, one of the other ones will make a resurgent. So I find that this rule set kind of persists on its own for quite a while. I've never watched it long enough to see one completely take over because I think they still interact enough that even if one of them starts to die out, like right now, I think it looks like blue's getting on the fairly weak side. But if we watch it long enough, blue will make a resurgence. And that makes this kind of fun to watch and also, kind of unpredictable. Next rule set I call cooperative. This was the original rule set that I came up with while playing with this. And it kind of reaches this equilibrium where all three will, as you can see, they thrive. They do affect each other, but mostly in aiding and giving extra birth when they themselves can't do it. So, like right now, if I were to kill everything and just start a game of life with only red, you'll see that red continues on. But if we watch it long enough, eventually it will die off without any kind of outside influence. So I can select the red plane and I can interfere with it. And if I watch long enough, eventually it will reach stalemate. It will get to the point where The cells will no longer influence themselves, and they will just reach this static state, and nothing will change unless I force it to. Like I can go ahead and, oops. So as you can see, so we're reaching that point right now. Now it might continue for a little bit longer because they do, they can spread out and hit new regions, but then this happens. Now if I introduce the green layer, notice how interacting with the red, it has spontaneously created blue, and now they're bringing each other back to life. I find this the most bubbly and lifelike rule set of the three, not including, of course, the original, which is here. So there you have it. That is my updated version of Game of Life. You may have noticed that the edges of the screen will cause the moving particles to wrap around. If one of the travelers goes off to the edge, they will come out the other side. It kind of creates like a toroidal uh, uh, persistent space. It doesn't have an end. It just kind of wraps around in itself. And that makes for an interesting dynamic area where things don't just reach an end. They kind of continue on. It would be conceivable to make one of those, what do they call them, gliders? Yeah, the little traveling glider things. You could make a glider producing machine that could literally launch a glider off, go off the screen, come back on the other side, and then destroy itself if you wanted to put that much time and effort into it. Because you can pause this, you can kill it, and you can begin to craft various different functions that exist. Now, of course, like what they call a block, which is like four squares like that. You'll see that when I unpause this, the ones up there, right up there, the ones, that little group, that little cluster will come to life, but that little square will remain completely static. They killed themselves. So we can use a different. Here we go. We can populate the world as we see fit. And then unpause it. And when we unpause this, it will spring into action. So let's give it rule set 3. Look, we got some gliders going on. That was completely accidental. Be interesting to see what happens when they come around. And I love how the gliders will spontaneously form. So the question is, will any of them interfere with green? And yeah, there we go. We brought some life to green. Let's see how this plays out. Look at that. It's got a chain reaction going on there. So that is my Colorways Game of Life. You know where to find it if you're interested in playing with it. Source code is available. I know some people have done some really amazing thing with these cellular automatons or automatas or whatever you call them. And auto tomato, auto tomato. Uh, so these are kind of primitive by some comparisons of the ones I've seen, but this was something I was bored one day and I just kind of puked up. And well, if you find it as interesting as I do, like I said, you know where you can find it. Till then, have some fun, don't get killed, eat more sausage, play more games, drink more beer, you know, the usual stuff. Later.